There's 3 or 4 more verses to that song, Brandon. How firm a foundation. I don't know of any song I like better than that one. There's some I like as well, but I don't know that there's many I like better. We'll be today in Genesis chapter 22, mostly. While you're turning, does anyone have anything they're needing or wanting to share? Gravett is having a revival February 21st through the 28th. Mark Sankey will be there. I don't know the times, but it's Sunday over Sunday. And then on March the 18th is a Thursday. The Allegheny Wesleyan College Choir will be at the Wesleyan Nazarene Church at 7:30. And then I've known for a long time that on March the 28th we were going to have a college group here, but I had forgotten which one. So I didn't want to announce it until I waited for them to contact me. Well, they did this week, and it's Union Bible College. We'll have a quartet here. There'll actually be 2 groups, but only one is singing. They're en route back from Oklahoma City. And so they will be here on the 28th of March. That's a Sunday morning. So we'll look forward to those times of singing. Genesis chapter 22, begin reading in verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham. What things? Came to pass after some things. What things? Well, if you were to go back to Genesis chapter 11, that's where we're first introduced to Abraham, although there he's known as Abram. And he's only mentioned as he was begot by, and then he took a wife. In chapter 12 of Genesis, we start to focus on Abraham. And in chapter 12 and verse 2, we see the first mention of the promise of Abraham being a great nation, having many descendants. As we move through Genesis 12, there's another promise and then a trip to Egypt. Chapter 13 tells of a family quarrel and another promise. Chapter 14 finds Abraham taking care of some renegades along with his meeting Melchizedek. In chapter 15, we find another promise and the note that Abraham's faith was counted as righteousness. Chapter 16 tells the sordid tale of a couple that took matters into their own hands, and Ishmael is born. He's the son of Abraham, but not the promised son. Chapter 17 spans 13 years and includes yet another promise. Chapter 18, again a promise. Chapter 19 focuses on Lot and some of his issues. And in chapter 20, Abraham is in Gerar. But in Genesis 21, we see the promise come to pass. Genesis 21:1, and the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. Oh, these must have been good times. A new baby at 100 years old. The promise made decades before and reaffirmed many times, I counted through, I think 8 at least, had come to pass. Abraham is holding the promise in his arms. Time passes and all seems well. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. Good times. Child's growing and feasting and family and fun. But trouble is brewing. You know, we can have forgiveness for our sins, but there's still going to be consequences. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son. For the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of thy bondwoman, and all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice. For in Isaac shall thy seed be called, and also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And Abraham arose up early in the morning, and took bread and a bottle of water, and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Now we read that, and we think about all that Abraham has gone through. And yet, now he has to take his son and his son's mother and kick her out. Say, go. And that's what he did. And that brings us to our text verse. Came to pass after these things, that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and went into the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again unto you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they both went. And they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father? And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And there Abraham built an altar, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. God's mercy and grace was sufficient for Abraham. He found out that God spared, and God would provide a substitute. But when Abraham started out, he didn't know that was going to happen. All he knew for sure was the word had come to sacrifice Isaac. The Bible doesn't say that Abraham argued, questions, or delays. All it says is he rose up early in the morning. I suspect it was the next morning, but the Bible doesn't say. He just rose up early in the morning. And so imagine with me, as we take a little poetic license, that as Abraham is preparing mentally and literally for the task at hand, he must have thought, I am sacrificing my past. My past with its promises, the promise of a son, the promise of descendants, the promise of blessing. All of the promises I've clung to for as long as I've been going are going to be gone. Can I cope and can I hope for another? The past with its promises, my past with its pains. And there had been lots of pains, month by month, no child. This year and next and another. Every 30 days, more heartbreak. Until finally, in desperation, Sarah says, Take Hagar, have a child. It'll be the promise. Well, he did, and they did, but it wasn't a promise, it was a pain. Sarah then turned on Abraham. Yes, he had done what she had asked him to. And yes, it was foolish, but she turned on him. And she was angry. Abraham made it through that trial, only to hear his wife lie to an angel of God when they were sitting on the plains of Mamre before Abraham interceded for Lot. And when the promise of Isaac finally arrived, soon his half-brothers caught mocking, and Sarah makes Abraham drive his son away. more pain, hurts from the past. No doubt they come flooding back to Abraham as the boy lies bound on the altar. On this altar is the pain of his past, his mistakes, his failures, and his disappointments. His past being sacrificed. Still, Abraham prepares, and surely he's thinking, I'm sacrificing my present. My present with its joys, from a baby to a toddler to a boy and now a lad. Isaac would have been a joy. Can you imagine as Isaac would have gotten a little older, he'd said, Daddy, tell me the story of me. I was a promise. What's that song? I'm a promise, possibility. I was a promise. Daddy, tell me the story of interceding, how God moved mightily and spared Lot and the fire fell. Dad, tell me those stories. Dad, tell me the stories of when you went and whipped those naughty kings that had taken Lot. Man, you must be tough, Dad. Tell me the story of Melchizedek. Dad, you must be important if he paid you tithes. And so all the bonding and the fellowship of the present, the joy of family and the joy of prosperity and the joy of hope, and it's all laying on that altar. And he's sacrificing it. He's sacrificing his present with its responsibilities. The tasks of keeping peace so that Isaac has a good place to live. The responsibility of feeding and clothing and educating this boy so in the ways of Almighty God. The responsibility to bring him safely home to his mother. Oh yeah, think about how Sarah would have felt had Sarah didn't like it and lied. She had issues already. And for Abraham to come back and say, Sarah, I've sacrificed the boy because God told me to. I don't think he relished that thought. And so his present he sacrificed, or was willing to. And the knife now in his hand, Abraham must have thought, I'm sacrificing my future with its hopes. My God didn't just promise descendants, he said they'd be numerous like the stars of heaven. The promise that all nations would be blessed in him, and that's going under the knife, fixing to be cut off. His future with its joys and with its surprises and with all that he'd been living for, hoping for the future, he was giving it up. Abraham's thinking, we had plans. We were going to go to the Euphrates and noodle catfish. Me and the boy were going to go to Egypt and float the Nile and shoot crocodiles and give his mother a crocodile purse. We had planned a vacation to Mount Ararat for an Ark Encounter experience. Plans and plans and more plans for the boy's future. I'm convinced Abraham had wondered what kind of a camel he was going to buy him for his first camel. Power steering and leather seats and four-hoof drive. Plans for the future. And later, much later, when Abraham's old, he thought, he'll take care of me and he'll provide and he'll choose our nursing home. My future being sacrificed. But it wasn't to be. We know that. And Abraham learned it. What was it said in verse 11 and 12? And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. Abraham's sacrifice was spared, and a ram became the substitute. You can read that in verse 3. And an exuberant, delighted dad called the place Jehovah-Jireh. The Lord will provide. Well, you know, this morning, Paul told us in Romans 12, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And then Jesus told us in Matthew chapter 10, verses 37 through 39, He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. On the altar this morning, we need to sacrifice us. Our past, our present, and our future. Our past with its promises, the promise of a better day, the promise of a better job, the promise of a bigger house, the promise of health. Promises are hopes that may or may not have been realized. The past with its pains. We've all had pains. Every one of us here has a heart that bears scars from our past hurts. Some pains, yes, are self-inflicted. Stupid choices lead to sickening consequences often. Others occur from being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but the pain is still real. At times, no doubt, we've been falsely accused, misunderstood, disappointed in the actions or inactions of another. Family and friends and church members, our scars come from many sources, but they're there. And we're called to sacrifice our past, to lay it on the altar and be done with it. Our present, each day filled with hope and ambition, each change to displace the monotony, enough change to displace the monotony and enough monotony to enjoy the stability. The day, the job, the responsibilities. We've got to sacrifice our present. And our futures, the unknown, with all that it can entail, good times, great times, promises, plans, desires, goals, the surprises, the suspense, our future has to be sacrificed. Everything we're living for, our reasons to plan, to invest, to save, our future must be on the altar of sacrifice. And so we'll consider the cost. What will this sacrifice cost? Will it cost me? Will it cost my family? Will it cost everybody involved? What is the cost of sacrificing everything? And the answer comes back when you ask, what is the cost? It comes back, error 404, page not found. And so we ask again, we Google, what is the cost of sacrificing everything? And there it is again, error 404, page not found. Is that techie talk? I'm impressed with myself. And you know the answer isn't to be found what it'll cost. For Elizabeth Elliot, it cost Jim. For Granddaddy, it cost the farm. For Dr. Brown, it cost an internship at the Rocket Lab. For Cor McGinnis, it cost the stage. And you know, I don't know what it will cost you to sacrifice everything. And I don't know what it will cost me to sacrifice everything. And since we don't know the cost, how do we make a comparison? Well, what do we get if we don't sacrifice? Hell. Say, surely you jest. No, I'm afraid not. Oh, there may be good times, make a lot of friends, date some gorgeous chicks, stuff your mattresses and paper your doghouse with Ben Franklin's. But it won't matter. You've gained hell. Jesus said, for what is a man profited if he gain the whole world and lose his soul? Makes sacrificing look pretty good, doesn't it? Makes sacrificing look pretty good, even though we don't know the cost. So when we yield to be a living sacrifice, what are we going to find? You know what you'll find? You'll find a lamb that was your substitute and a Jehovah Jireh, a God that provides. He provided a way of redemption. He provides healing for the past. He provides help for the present. And he provides heaven for the future. This Jehovah Jireh this morning is a never-changing one. He's still providing today. The question is, are we sacrificing? Are we sacrificing? It's only 25 after 11. Lord, give me this message, middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday. At the same time, he gave a song. So let's stand, and in closing, we'll sing. It's page 525. Think about the words of it. And think about what we're asked to do. $525. You have longed for sweet peace and for faith to increase, and have earnestly, fervently prayed. and sweet rest as you yield him your body and soul. Would you walk with Lord in the light of his word and have peace and contentment always? You must do his sweet will to be free from all ill. On the altar your all you must lay. All on the altar of sacrifice lay. Your heart does the Spirit control. Only be blessed and have peace and sweet rest as you yield him your body and soul. Oh, we never can know what the Lord will bestow of the blessings for which we have prayed. Body and soul he doth fully control, and are all on the altar his laid. Is your all on the altar of sacrifice laid? Your heart does the Spirit control. You can only be blessed and have peace and sweet rest as you yield him your body and soul. Can tell all the love he will send from above, and how happy our hearts will be made of the fellowship sweet he doth share at his feet when our all on the altar is laid. Is your all on the altar of sacrifice laid? Your heart doth the Spirit control. Only be blessed and have peace and sweet rest as you hear